Today, I'll show you how to make macarons with no fancy equipment or ingredients. I know it seems like there's a lot of barriers to entry for making perfect macarons, so we're going to simplify things today, which means we will make macarons using no scale, no electric mixer, no cream of tartar, no pre-ground almond flour, no piping bags, no resting, and no convection settings in the oven. Let's get started. Here are all the ingredients you'll need. Usually I recommend using a scale to measure ingredients for baking, since correct measurements are crucial for success with macarons. If you don't have a scale, please pay special attention to how these ingredients should be measured. First, let's start with the egg. 24 hours before baking, separate the white from the yolk when the egg is cold. Place it in a clean and dry cup and cover it with plastic wrap. Poke a few holes on the top and let it age in the fridge for a minimum of 24 hours. Make sure it's at room temperature when you're ready to start whipping. Next, to measure the powdered sugar as accurately as possible without a scale, fluff it up inside the container. Use a spoon to transfer it into a measuring cup and then level it off with a knife. Do the same for the tablespoons as well. Use the same method for the almond slices. Scoop up just enough to fill the measuring cup. As for the castor sugar, just scoop it directly from the container and shake it until it levels off naturally. Transfer the almonds and powdered sugar into a food processor and pulse until it becomes fine. Make sure you pulse them together to prevent the almonds from becoming butter. Sift the mixture and discard any large pieces that cannot be sifted. Now start whipping the room temperature egg whites with a whisk. I'm showing you a real-time whipping speed which has been cut down for brevity. It helps to hold the bowl close to your body like this. It takes about 3 minutes to whip it up to a foamy consistency. But remember, how long it takes you will depend on your own whipping speed, your tools and ingredients, etc. Use the appearance to judge whether it's time to move to the next step rather than the duration itself. Once it's foamy, add the acid of your choice and keep whipping. When the bubbles have decreased in size, the whites will look opaque and the whisk will start leaving tracks inside the whites. Slowly start to add the sugar at this time. It's important to do this slowly so the sugar can be fully absorbed. Now this is the last stretch. As you can see, it's not at stiff peaks yet, but it can happen very quickly, so watch out for it. The good thing about whipping by hand is that it's much harder to over whip since you'll probably get a little bit bored or tired near the end. It takes a further 6 minutes for it to get from the soft peak stage to stiff, so in total the entire whipping process took me about 15 minutes. It has reached stiff peaks when the points in the meringue don't droop once the whisk is pulled out. You can also test it by turning the bowl upside down. You'll see the whites don't slide around inside the bowl. I wanted to show you the entire process of getting the meringue to stiff peaks, so I didn't add the color yet. Normally, I would add the color in the soft peak stage, like what I'm doing in the screen on the upper right. You can also add the color in at the stiff peak stage, but just do it gently. This is what I do if I want to split up the meringue for making multiple colors from one batch of macarons. If you're interested in doing that, just watch my other tutorial on this. Next, add the dry ingredients in 3 separate additions and then gently fold it into the meringue like this. Once it's mostly incorporated, press out some more of the air by pressing the batter against the bowl like this. Before we finish folding, I recommend judging the batter readiness by its appearance instead of the number of folds, since every batter is different. A batter can be easier or harder to fold depending on the meringue stiffness, your own folding style and pressure, and other factors. At this stage, the batter is still too thick. We'll have to fold it a bit more. Now test the batter consistency. It should flow slowly without breaking apart. Transfer the batter to a piping bag or freezer Ziploc bag. I prefer using actual piping bags because it provides more control while piping, but I wanted to show you that it's possible to make macarons without it. Holding the bag perfectly straight, pipe the batter onto the parchment paper. It doesn't look very round, so I prefer using a round piping tip. Of all the macaron baking tools you can skip, I would recommend not skipping this one. It's so inexpensive and will really help elevate the appearance of your macarons. Better yet, if your budget allows, buy a silicone mat too. I'll show you the difference it makes later. Bang the tray on the counter several times to get rid of the excess bubbles. For the really stubborn ones, just use a toothpick or scribe tool to pop them. Next, I'm going to go right ahead and pop these into the oven. I wanted to show you it's possible to bake macarons directly after piping without resting. Now I should note, this is not due to anything special about my recipe or any recipe that claims to be a no-rest recipe. It really depends on you and your technique. If your meringue is strong and you haven't overfolded and you don't live in a very humid environment, it's perfectly okay to just pop them straight into the oven right after piping. Bake them for 12 to 14 minutes at 325 degrees Fahrenheit on the middle rack, one tray at a time. Remember, every oven is different, so take a look at the oven guide on my blog to help you find the optimal setting for baking macarons in your own home oven. I'm using the regular bake setting without the convection fan for this batch, just to show you it can be baked in a regular oven. Test the doneness by nudging the shell. If it doesn't wiggle, it's done. Here's the shell baked on silicone. It's much rounder with smaller feet. This one baked on paper is not as round and has taller feet. The bottom also is a lot smoother, but no one will be looking there anyways. Once the shells are cooled, fill it with your favorite filling and let it mature inside an airtight container in the fridge for 24 hours before eating. Enjoy! If you like this video and all the techniques covered here, please consider leaving me a thumbs up so my channel can keep growing and I can keep making content like this for you. Thanks so much for watching.